Hello, and welcome to another episode of A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm BC Cloutier, President of Action for Life, and this is Father Michael Orsi. Hello, Father. Nice to see you.
How you doing? Always good to see you.
Doing great. It's always nice to be seen. You know? Every day that I wake up on this side of the grass is a bonus.
Well, yeah, I look in the mirror in the morning, mirror, mirror on the wall, then it cracks.
I wanted to deal with, we deal with a lot of serious subjects, Father, but I wanted to deal with Judgment Day today. I read Gospel a few weeks ago, Luke chapter 21. Relates how, when some people were speaking about how the temple was adorned with costly stones and votive offerings, Jesus said, "All that you see here, the days will come when there will not be left a stone upon stone that will not be thrown down." So they asked him, "Teacher, when will that happen? And what sign will there be that all these things are about to happen?" And Jesus answered, "See that you not be deceived, for many will come in my name, saying, 'I am he,' and the time has come. Do not follow them. When you hear of wars and insurrections, do not be terrified, for such things must happen first. But it will not immediately be the end." Then he said to them, "Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be powerful earthquakes, famines, and plagues from place to place. And awesome sights and mighty sounds will come from the sky." So my question, Father, is, are we moving closer and closer to Judgment Day? What do you think?
I suppose as time goes by, we're getting closer, you know.
It sure feels that way.
Yeah, as time goes by, certainly we're getting at least chronologically closer. But I think what we're talking about here is mostly what is going to take place in God's time and in salvation history. Oftentimes, people like to be scared straight. So what is used is fear. Mm-hmm. We talked about this earlier with the climate change. Right. The oceans are rising, and all of a sudden the ocean is going to rise, and New York City is going to be underwater, Miami is going to be underwater, and it's one way of getting people to do what we want people to do. Is there going to be a judgment day? The answer is yes. But when is it going to be? That we don't know. Right. And Jesus makes that very, very clear. Now, in this portion of Luke's gospel, we have what we call apocalyptic literature. And when we hear apocalyptic, we usually think of the book, the Apocalypse, or the book of Revelation, which talks about the end times. But I said end times is a relative term because for, I suppose, all of us, we are all living in the end times. Our life does not continue forever in our earthly body. Mm-hmm. The Jewish people had a great security in the temple. They said, that's God's temple. God resides in that temple, and it was just a magnificent structure. And they felt secure because they had it. God would never destroy this temple. God would never diminish his presence among us. When Luke is writing this gospel, you have to recall that temple was decimated, torn down by the Romans in the year 70. We think that this gospel of Luke was written around between 70 and 75. So is he giving a prophecy regarding the destruction of the temple, or is he just giving a prophecy saying, you see, God is not going to take care of you just because you have this temple, but God's law is a law that spreads throughout the universe, and that we are subject to God's law no matter what age we live in, whether it be the year 100 AD or we're the 20th century or the 21st century. We are all subject to God's law, and that God is continually judging us, and so far as how we obey his law. Mm-hmm. So, is Luke presenting us with an historical fact that he knew this happened, or is he giving a prognostication of what he thought was going to happen? I favor the first case scenario. And he's saying, you see, our salvation is not in that place. All human institutions will eventually come to an end. We will all be judged. And at the end of time, the world will end and God will sort things out. That's where I stand on this issue. Now, let me say this, because I'm sure many of you have perhaps even seen this. Maybe about 40 years ago, 50 years ago, when I was a youth, there were these posters, and people would have them on their cars. What do you call those things?
Bumper stickers.
Bumper stickers, yeah. And it would say, "Jesus is coming soon." And boy, is he mad. Okay, yeah. Okay.
You can edit that out.
And boy, is he mad. Now, is it a way of scaring people straight? Yeah, it is. But it also is a way for certain types of people, and I mean this in a very respectful way, that they begin to look at history, look at the present age, look at what's happening in the world, and saying, you see, what does he say over there? Oh, it says there's going to be wars, there's going to be famines, there's going to be insurrections. And sure enough, the whole history of humanity, they've always been there. And from where we are right now, we are in the midst of it. And it is having an impact on us and saying, yeah, but it is happening in the Middle East. Yeah, but the cities are going to be drowned because of global warming. There are terrible plagues and dangers. COVID, some people would say, hey, COVID was one of those examples. Look what happened. Well, as you can see, some of it. Well, let me put it this way. Dr. Fauci was not a prophet.
We'll be back right after this. Hi, I'm BC Cloutier, president of Action for Life. As you can imagine, producing this program is quite an expensive endeavor, and we would appreciate your contributions in any amount. If you'd like to support the program, please visit actionforlife.org and click on the donate button. Again, it's that simple, actionforlife.org. Thank you, and God bless. Welcome back to A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm BC Cloutier. Father, before the break, we were talking about, wars, insurrection, etc.
Plagues.
Plagues. Yeah. One of the things that occurred to me, and I think this is a result of a homily that you gave that I listened to, is
that listen to what I
say? Periodically, while things in the Bible may appear to have occurred relatively quickly, the fact of the matter is some of these things unfolded over decades or even centuries.
Sure. Yeah.
And I suppose that we could point back to World War II, World War I, the Civil War, just for American historical periods, and say those must have been very dark days in which people wondered if the world was going to end.
Sure. Suppose you were in Dresden.
Oh, yeah.
The world is coming to an end. What about situations where you might have a volcano erupt? Those people that were in Naples and Vesuvius erupted, what did they think? What was happening? The world was coming to an end. Tsunamis. Sure, the world is coming to an end. Yeah.
It's I guess easy for me and probably for most people to say, wow, the way things are going in this country and in the world, I don't know how long is this going to last,
Yeah, but again, it's relative to us. How long is this going to last? You talked a few minutes ago about World War I, the Civil War. War is hell. I mean, and when we begin to look at end of the world, if you're living through a tragedy, if you're living through a chaotic situation, if you're living through a time when society is in chaos, like us, you think the end of the world is coming. And you say here, 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 and here. And we talked earlier about this. A lot of preachers will get into this and say, here it is, here it is, here it is. And they can be very, very convincing, especially if people are Bible-centered people. The book of Revelation, the last book of the Bible, the book of Apocalypse, it's filled with that, but it is apocalyptic imagery. It's a certain genre that the writers of the gospel use to show a certain insight into the end times, that the world is coming to an end, that Satan is present in the world, that the beast 6666 is reigning, but the reign will come to an end that when the Messiah comes. And let's just talk briefly about that. When we look at the book of Revelation, it really is not a book that gives us a map for the future. It simply discusses reality as it is. And let me be quite honest. Reality doesn't change that much. I mean, we might certainly have things that they didn't have back in the first century, certainly. But did they have calamity? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Did they have sickness? Yeah. Did they have earthquakes? Yeah. Did they have wars? Yeah. They had all of these things. The key is, how do you interpret apocalyptic literature that God is ultimately in control and that God will bring the world to a final and a good conclusion for those who follow God's law. So let's go back to book of Revelation, the Apocalypse. We look at that and say, what does that symbolism mean? Who is he talking about? Who is the Antichrist? Well, they say, seems like it could have been Nero, the emperor. Who's the devil? The evil one, 666. 666 is an imperfect number. Perfect number is 7, 7, 7, 7, 3 sevens. Perfect. 3 sixes, totally imperfect. Nero, emperor, a madman. Did terrible damage to the Christian community. What they did regarding crucifying them and using them as human torches in Nero's gardens. I mean, what would you think? The end is coming, and the early Christians expected the end to come very, very soon. And, well, as you know, we're still here 2,000 years later. So when you look at that Revelation, the whore of Babylon, that was Rome. The whore of Babylon was Rome. And when you look at the whore of Babylon, she's sitting on 7 hills. The 7 hills are the 7 hills of Rome. So you take where you are right now. It's not necessarily a prognostication of the future, but it is telling you what is going on right now and how a Christian is supposed to behave right now and what the final outcome is going to be. And the outcome is going to be that God is in ultimate control. And Jesus says that. Don't go around, scaring people half to death. What you want to do, the gospel and Jesus is about love and peace and joy. Look, you want people to be aware that there is a judgment, but you also want people to be aware that if you live a life modeled after the life of Christ and the gospel, that you're going to experience a taste of the kingdom right now. And Jesus says continually, do not be afraid. And he doesn't want to scare people to death, all right?
He also says something else important, and that is be prepared.
Be prepared, yeah.
Because we don't know only God knows what our expiration date is, right? We don't know.
Right. But it's true on 2 things. Number one, certainly personally, we don't know our expiration date, okay? But also, we don't know the expiration date of the world either. So, you can't live your life, or am I going to die tomorrow? You have to live your life as best you can right now. Mm-hmm. That's what you do right now. And know that there is certainly going to be a judgment. But if you're living your life as best you can right now, depending on God's grace, and that Jesus is holding your hand, you're going to get pretty far in the next world, on the better side of things.
Glad to hear that, Father. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm B.C. Cloutier. Father, amidst all this talk of doom and gloom, as well as faith and hope in the future, I guess hope. We all should hope.
Okay. Hope.
Shouldn't we?
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
I hope so. Hope is one of the three theological virtues: faith,
Hope and charity.
and charity.
Sure.
We know about faith. Most of us can say, well, faith means faith in Jesus Christ. Faith means faith in the teachings of Jesus. Charity, we know what that means. Be loving, be generous, be kind. That seems to be pretty easy. Hope is not talked about that much. And a lot of people think it's because hope means, like, I hope I win the lottery. Okay, folks, that's fanciful thinking. Fanciful, is that a word? I think it is.
It is now.
It is.
And by the way, I pray that I win the lottery doesn't work either.
Doesn't work.
Right? Because God is not Amazon.com.
No. But hope means that in the darkest of situations, and I've been there, folks, the darkest of situations, there is light. There is light. And that was the message of really Christmas. It's the feast of hope. There was a light in the darkness, and the light dispelled the darkness. People saw no way out of the situation that they were in. It's not just the political situation. Well, you got to remember, I mean, Jesus came into a place, Israel, that was under the thumb of the Romans. And that was not pleasant for the Jewish people. And of course, that the Romans were very, very harsh to the Jewish people. And the Jewish people wanted them out. They wanted them out. So politically, it was a darkness that took place. It was hovering over Israel. The second thing is, personally, the problems that people had regarding, say, the Pharisaical interpretation of the law. Let me be clear, folks. All the Pharisees were not bad people. Many of them were very, very, very good people trying to do the best they can, trying to follow the law of God. Except it became so complex. I think there was 627 prescriptions of the law, rubrics of the law, that the rabbis, the scribes, and the Pharisees extracted from the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible. If there were 627 rules for me to follow, forget about it. I mean, I couldn't even remember them. So when Jesus comes into the world, he lifts the legal burdens off the people, and he says, I am the way, I'm the truth, I'm the life. Come follow me, do not be afraid. And then he brings it down, love God and love neighbor. Now, that's light in the darkness. And when you look at the infancy narratives, which are just packed with hope, even that star that leads the wise men, that's light. It's guiding them.
Sure.
It's guiding them to Jesus. So it's all about hope. And there's another scene in there that I think most of us don't really reflect on, and we should. It is the shepherds, and that's in Luke's gospel too. The shepherds were the lowest of the low in their society.
Is that true?
Oh yeah. Nobody liked them. They were almost considered to be nomads. Their flocks oftentimes wandered into people's estates and their gardens and ate the food, and people did not like the shepherds at all. And they were disenfranchised in their society. Who comes to the Messiah? This is the poor people. This is the lowest of the low. This is the people who really had no hope. And all of a sudden, they're the ones first invited to worship the Messiah. And for them, there is hope. Oftentimes, people would look at people who didn't do very well in life. And I think some of this is still there. This was especially true, I suppose, of a Calvinist theology, where if you made it good, it was a sign that you were favored by God. If you didn't do well, it was a sign that you were not favored by God. You were predestined for damnation. So this is still present. And if somebody is of the Presbyterian persuasion, Calvinist, you might take a look. Where does that theology stand today? But we have a lot of people who are disenfranchised, members of our own society who just haven't been able to make it yet. I'm going to put that in there. Just because you are on the lower percentile of money making in society or status, it doesn't mean that within 10 years you'll be there on the bottom. It might be in 10 years you might rise to the top.
Especially in America.
Oh, it's just fantastic. A new book out by Thomas Sowell. It's just fantastic. And he talks about the problems with social justice, that whole theory of social justice, where we ask the state to come in and level the playing field and say, it's not enough to be equal, give people an equal start, but we have to be equitable, and they end up in the same place. And he's showed in the books a number of times the data. Somebody might start off 20 years prior on the lowest end, and within 20 years, they are risen to a higher end, and some even to the highest quartile. So Jesus is all about hope. The world doesn't like to talk about hope. All right, the world likes to talk about we're going to make things right. We're going to give you ESG. We'll tell you who you are. We'll tell you what you're going to do. We'll tell you where you're going to live, and we're going to tell you how much money you can make, and we're going to tell you how many kids you could have. No. With Jesus, you have the hope of being freed physically, spiritually, politically, mentally, from those things that bind people and hold them down and don't give them the opportunity to develop themselves as fully alive and fully free human beings. We saw that with the shepherds, right? We see Jesus born in a stable,
Yep.
right? But with the gospel, we're told that there is hope. And any church that does not talk about hope is not talking about the gospel. Hope is the key. I want to come out of church and I want to say, hey, there is hope. There is a world out there that, I don't have to be intimidated by, but I could walk in the light. I could stand for the truth. I could speak the truth. I can make something of myself, because unless you have that sense that God is with you, that's the hope. That God is with me, and that God is going to make things right, and that I am going to be a success, but even more than that, I'm going to be a saint.
Well, it's interesting that it's just when you encounter religious or spiritual people, they tend to be much more optimistic and much more pleasant.
Yeah.
Atheists are sort of...
sourpusses.
Yeah.
They are. They're sourpusses.
It's true. Everything is bad with atheists.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll be back right after this.
Action for Life is proud to sponsor a conversation with Father Orsi. Action for Life is an all-volunteer, pro-life, interfaith ministry that's focused on the sanctity of life from conception to natural death. In addition to sponsoring this TV program, Action for Life provides financial support and life assistance to any woman who wishes to carry her baby to term in anticipation of an adoption. Action for Life also provides financial assistance to a variety of pro-life organizations, including maternity homes, pregnancy resource centers, anti-human trafficking agencies, and sidewalk advocates, but to name a few. Please consider making a donation so that we can continue in the fight to save preborn babies. You can donate online at actionforlife.org. Thank you, and God bless.
Hey gang, I know a lot of you sometimes can't watch all of our episodes of Action for Life. However, we have a solution for that. All you have to do is go to YouTube and search for Action for Life Florida. And you can catch up on all the shows, and guess what? Extra added bonus, you get to hear my weekly homily. So, YouTube and you make a fine couple.
Welcome back to A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm B.C. Cloutier. Father, final thoughts this morning?
Wow, we talked a lot about end times, and we're all living in the end times. I mean, we look at things, like from a human perspective, like a clock and a calendar. Mm-hmm. End times are right now, and they're not end times that are supposed to scare us. They are challenging us to live the life of Christ right now. That's why we are living in the end times. And the end times have been going on for a long time. Bottom line is this, that with Jesus, things are going to work out. That's the key. And even that book of Revelation that we're so scared of sometimes, it is a book that is filled with hope. As you get to the end of that book of Revelation, you see the saints surrounding the throne of God. What more beautiful thing is that? I mean, the imagery there, the heavenly choirs are singing, God is manifesting himself to everyone, and those who are gathered around the throne of God are sharing in the very life of God himself. Don't think you have to wait until everything comes to a conclusion at whenever God decides it's going to come to conclusion. With hope, we are having a taste of it right now. We're having a taste of it right now. And if we don't live in hope, then life is boring, it's sad, it's tragedy. In one of our other shows, we talked about people who want to commit suicide, people who want euthanasia. You know what I think? I think they're lacking hope. And the reason why they want to end their life is because for them there is no hope. And for the Christian, there is always hope. So go through that Bible. You're going to see over and over and over again that God's mercies are forever, that he is always giving us hope for the future. And you get to the end of that book, that is not like, a horror show in print. I'm sure Hollywood has made some shows based on that.
Yeah.
But what that last book is, it tells us about how God is working in this world, despite the evil that exists in the world, despite the Roman Empire, despite the World War I, II, despite the Civil War, despite any of those wars that have taken place throughout the ages of humanity. Apocalypse says God's in control. There's always hope. There is light. And anyone who lives in the light will not live in darkness.
Join us again next week for another edition of A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm B.C. Cloutier. Until that time, have a great week and God bless.